This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Goal Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Goal Boys. Coming up on the show, Steve Fezzik, professional bettor, pregame.com. He will join us. We will talk betting preseason, his thoughts on the new kickoff rules, lots of just different general betting philosophies. Very excited to talk to Steve. He's just fresh off vacation, so he is going to be raring to go. Look forward to that. I'll start with some NFL. Been spending a lot of time on baseball, and I will continue to spend time on baseball, even during the NFL. I'm gonna be all over these pennant races in the playoffs. But let's do a little NFL off the top, because we do have a few things that are newsy, and I do run the risk at the time I record this Tuesday night, and by the time it's up, the Brandon Ayuk trade may have already happened. But I have to admit, I'm surprised. The 49ers receiver, who's a tremendous player, yards after the catch, he can block. He's an all-around outstanding receiver. And the 49ers, who kind of an all-in season where you're not paying Purdy that much money. You figure, hey, this is not a last dance, but this is kind of maybe the last time you can have this group of players together. Well, it seems like they're willing to trade Ayuk. And again, maybe by the time you listen to this, he's traded to the Browns or the Patriots, and the structure's in place where, hey, it's up to Ayuk now, which place you want to go, as long as they'll pay you. That kind of thing, where they can work out a contract, because Ayuk wants more money. 49ers say, hey, we love to give it to you, but we can't. So we're in a bit of a standstill, but this would really be a hit to the 49ers, because I know they have a million weapons. They have Pierce all to take his place, and Shanahan's outstanding. All of that is true, but Debo's hurt a lot. Kittle's hurt a lot. McCaffrey's already banged up with a calf. If you lose Ayuk, especially first place schedule, they are at a massive, Warren Sharp did the study, they are at a massive rest disadvantage, way more than any other team in the league. We look at all the teams they have to play off buys, all of the times they are playing on prime time and short rest, and they're just, it is stacked against them. Plus the whole idea of, hey, the Super Bowl loser is one trend that has been tried and true throughout the years. You lose the Super Bowl, very rarely are you good or even decent the next year. Usually that takes a hit to the team for whatever reason. It's just hard to get off the map. I know Cincinnati a couple of years ago lost the Super Bowl and almost got back the next year. It's happened. It happens here and there. In the Patriot teams that lost the Super Bowl, a lot of them bounced back, but it's pretty damning against the team that loses the Super Bowl to return. So this would be a hit for the 49ers. I don't know the betting angle for it. I guess he would just lean towards an under and just figure, hey, McCaffrey banged up, Debo's injury prone. If you do trade Ayuk, now there's some reports that maybe they get Amari Cooper back. He's not as good, but at least would be something. So something to keep an eye on. That is the 49ers situation. The other news situation, this happened a few days ago. I should have mentioned it the other day. Justin Herbert banged up already for the Chargers, plantar fasciitis, in their second round pick, really top of the second round, almost in the first. I think it's 33rd pick in the draft. Wide receiver Ladd McConkey from Georgia, who's always hurt in college. He's dealing with an injury. He should be ready to go for the season. So should Herbert, but boy, any optimism for the Chargers? And there is a ton of optimism, which I understand. A lot of this league, a lot of the NFL is about coaching quarterback, and they have Herbert, they have Harbaugh, and you can kind of figure out the rest, even though the roster is not great, and they made a lot of changes in the offseason. You just, man, every time with the Chargers, it's injuries, and some teams, some franchises just always have a black cloud hanging over their head. And it's part of football. It's part of life. It's part of betting. It's part of everything is luck. And they Chargers just never seem to have any. And it sounds like one of those injuries. Yeah, he'll be ready to go for the start of the season, but it could linger. It could be bothering him. So again, just not how you want to start the season here if you're the Chargers. And I think the betting angle, you could still get the Raiders +3 for week one. And I think that's a free roll. You take the Raiders +3 week one. And if Herbert can't go, you have a great number. And if he's a little bit banged up, you have a really good number. And if he's fine, you know what? You just take the Chargers on the money line, and you can drink a little bit of juice, but have a nice little middle there where that line's not going to move the other way. So I would take the Raiders +3. I think that's the way to play it here. So keep an eye on the 49ers situation. Chargers off to a bad start. Their win total 8.5. This would not get me to play the under, but with how good the AFC is, they're about even money to miss the playoffs, -130 to miss, depending on where you shop. The yes, no is -130, +110 or so the other way. It can shop around. Maybe miss the playoffs is the way to go. Just figure, hey, team's already thin to begin with. McConkey's hurt. Herbert's hurt. Team might not be good enough if they were healthy. And the AFC is loaded, and there's going to be good teams that are going to miss the playoffs in the AFC. It's just, I mean, you go through the teams. Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Ravens, Bengals, Browns. I mean, Steelers aren't terrible. Chiefs, Chargers, Texans, Jags are okay. Colts are okay. I mean, that's just that you can't all make the playoffs. So maybe Chargers to miss the playoffs is the way to go. Full preseason slate this week. A lot of the numbers have moved. Minnesota, LA, Minnesota, Vegas has bounced around a ton. Patriots are like -1. They're up to -6.5 against Carolina. That is too many. In general, I would just play against these line moves. I know they're very strong and the information is strong in terms of why it moved. And Hitman, who we had on last week, is a big part of these because he releases these plays. And within seconds, they move like 3.5 points. But just don't chase the bad number. It's one thing, all right, gives out -1. I'm going to lay -2. But when you start laying 4 or 5 points off the original number, you're asking for trouble. So that is the NFL preseason full slate this week. Every team in action. You get that little taste of it last week with the Hall of Fame game, and now every team's in action. I like the first week of the preseason. By the second, third week of the preseason, all right, I get it. A little tired of it. Let's just get ready for the real thing. But it's nice to just see them back on the field, see the uniforms, see the rookies. Even though guys play less and less, it is nice to have it back. And the real thing isn't too far around the corner. I mentioned this last week. I'll say it again. Or maybe I mentioned it Monday. They have gotten way, way too comfortable not finishing these preseason games, whether it's injuries, whether it's, lightning delays. People are paying money. People are betting this stuff. You're partners with the league. Finish the games. I understand once in a while, once in a blue moon, there's going to be a situation where, hey, it's not realistic. It's not feasible to finish the game. We got lightning until 3:00 in the morning. Game's over. I get that. But twice last year, injuries in the third, fourth quarter, they called the game. This year, lightning in the third quarter. All right, game's over. Too much. You got to do a better job finishing these games. You really do. I think there should be more emphasis on doing everything you can to finish these games. So that is the NFL. We'll talk more NFL, preseason betting, regular season betting philosophies, bonuses, everything Steve Fezzik has to offer. That is next. This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. You can catch him at pregame.com. He is the only back-to-back super contest winner at the Westgate. It is the great Steve Fezzik. He joins us now. Steve, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
My everlasting summer, and it's fading fast, and it's time to get focused as football is upon us.
I never know if you're speaking just normally or you're doing song lyrics, movie references. That wasn't a song reference, right? Because this has become your shtick. Movie references, song lyrics, this has become your thing.
Yeah, that's Steely Dan reeling in the years. You've been telling me you're a genius since you're 17. All the times I've known you, I don't know what you mean. The weekend at the colleges didn't turn out like I planned. The teams I thought would cover, I can't understand.
I'm enjoying it. I enjoy these very much. With preseason here, we're getting the first full week. What is your response? You hear people, I'm sure you hear it all the time. Hey, you can't bet preseason. It's degenerate to bet preseason. It's, practice games. What is your response to that? And what is your approach to betting preseason?
Yeah, there's two good approaches to preseason and one bad one. The good approaches are it's beatable, but I'm spending so much time handicapping other stuff, baseball, the Olympics. I just don't have time. Or it's beatable and I'm focused on it and I bet it. Those are good responses. The bad response is, it's not beatable. And the best evidence I can give of how wrong that is that if you ask any bookmaker that is setting the lines and trying to manage their liability, do they like or do they hate preseason? They'll all tell you they hate it because they have to make their limits low. Because look at the Raiders. The Raiders are an underdog against the Vikings. Oh, no, wait. The Raiders are a 4.5-point favorite. That's never going to happen absent injury news in the regular season or week 18 in the NFL, but it happens all the time in preseason. They're just throwing darts against the bookmakers. No idea what the number should be. They're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing where it moves based on information.
Wow, I didn't realize that was up to 4.5. I know the Hitman gave it out. I had the Hitman on last week, and he gave some good nuggets on how to bet preseason. What is your approach? Do you still originate it? I know you're friends with the Hitman, so you just play his stuff. What is your approach? And is there anything in week one that you like? And by the way, I really didn't know that got up to 4.5. And if you do get a good number, I guess I should ask this too. Do you try and buy back and try to middle it?
I have a philosophy, APB, always play back something whenever there's a dramatic line move. Now, this is actually called the 8 of clubs betting method. It works better during the regular season than the preseason, frankly, because the information is so powerful in preseason. But I am a huge believer. I'll look at the CFL game last night, for instance. So Calgary, I think, opens -2. and it gets steamed up to -4.5. All right, well, Calgary is what the sharp bettors are betting. No, Calgary is what the sharp bettors bet at -2 and -3. There's not one sharp better in the world that's laying 4 on Calgary. So then the sharps take +4.5 on the other guys, and they take +4 and the line goes down to 3. And then people say, oh, the sharp money's on the dog. No, the sharp money's on the dog +4 and 4.5. At +3, it's too late once again. And then fiddles in the middle, lands 4. And I'm just a huge believer that pay attention to what all these lines are over the course of the betting cycle. It is rarely wrong if you see it on a high point or a low point to fade that move and to look, if you are going to bet the game at that point, Viking game, for instance, you can only bet the Vikings +4.5. You'd have to be a complete Dumbo to bet the Raiders -4.5. You're the last one in the bathroom. Everyone else has gone in the bathroom and soiled it, and it's just basically despicable. And now you want to use the bathroom. Well, good luck with that. Bring your own handy wipes because it's going to get messy.
Anything you would recommend for this week in preseason? I know you've had some good trends. I forget if it's week 1 or week 2, but there's some totals you like to bet over, I think. Forget if it's week 1 or week 2, and things have changed. We don't get the 4-game preseason anymore. This is 3 games, so that changes things. But anything this week or just in general that you'd recommend?
Yeah, so in general, I would say there's pressure on the overs. I would selectively look to play overs. And the reason being, these new kickoff returns are going to increase field position by like 4 yards. And that's just from field position. You are going to see fumbles. You are going to see a kickoff return for touchdown. There's more things that can happen that are going to help overs. And because of that, I think when you're looking at just the betting board, this morning, Philly-Baltimore got hit under. The only reason that got hit under is it's a weather game. There's going to be bad weather. But absent any weather situations, you're going to see select games get hit to the over. Example, Tennessee, San Fran, steam from 36.5 to 39. So if you like anything that's on an over, New Orleans, Arizona got hit from over 36 up to over 38. I would look to move on it now because more than likely, I think these totals are going to increase slightly. I think if you bet every game over, if there was 15 games left, you go 8-7. I think there'll be one more over than under, so slight bias there.
We have one sort of data point with the Hall of Fame game with the kickoffs. It was awkward. There were a lot of penalties. So did you watch that? Did you have any takeaway from that? And what is the optimal kickoff strategy for the kicking team?
Yeah, so as far as watching that game, I was in Lake Tahoe in the lake swimming, so I was not diligent paying attention to that. The optimal strategy is clear cut. You hear all these experts talking about all these different possibilities, and it surprised me because it's crystal clear. Every NFL team is going to do this. You're going to get your kicker to get out there, and the optimal kick, because no one can move other than the 2 dudes returning the kick. All right. So there's no reason to kick the ball high and get hang time. You want to kick a ball, one, that's very difficult to catch. So corkscrewing, twisting, line drive, hard to catch kick. 2, you want to put it as close as possible to the goal line. Just because if the kick returners start at the 10 and your guys are starting on the 40, even if they had no blockers, they're going to converge if they're running the same speed at the 25. And there are blockers. So if you kick it to the 0, then they're going to converge on the 20. And obviously with blocking, they're going to get a lot further than the 20. So kick it as close as possible to the goal line. I would make the case, I would aim for the 1 yard line. You know what? If it lands right on the goal line, that's actually perfect because now I'm the kick returner and I want to have to think about 2 things. I want to think about catching the ball and then running. I don't want that third item to say, wait, is this going in the end zone? Because if it goes in the end zone on the fly, I want to obviously let that happen, take a knee, start on the 30. But if I'm not sure, it's like the tennis player and anyone who's played tennis and you see that ball and it looks like, I think it's going in, maybe it's going out. And now you're like you're short circuiting. You don't know what to do. And probably you go ahead and hit it then. Or in this case, you'll see kick returners catching the ball right on the goal line that would have gotten in the end zone and they're going to still run it out. So I would aim basically for the end zone. It's no big disaster if you kick it out of past the goal line and it's just a touchback to the 30. Dude's going to return it to close to the 30 anyways. So I think you'll see that's the strategy every team's going to employ.
That Hall of Fame game was not finished. They canceled it due to, or I don't even know what the word is. They suspended play and then they didn't resume. So it was a final in the third quarter. We saw 2 games last summer where there was injuries, same sort of deal, third quarter, early fourth quarter, and they said, all right, game over. Do you think the league is getting a little too comfortable just calling off the rest of these preseason games, considering, hey, we bet on this stuff, they charge money for tickets? Do you think they're getting a little too comfortable?
Absolutely. And they've got to realize, I get it. Player safety is paramount, but who cares? I mean, all these kids, if you ask them, they're trying to make the team. All right. They're the third stringers. They're like, oh, I'll willingly take the risk in one game, to go out there. I don't care if lightning's going on above me. Let me give you a probably bad example, but let me have a chance to show you what I can do. And the league is partnering up with all of these gaming providers. And thus, I think there's a fiduciary responsibility, almost make sure there's integrity of the game. No one wants to see bettors betting overs and then getting pushes when the game has already gone over because the game doesn't go 55 minutes.
Totally agree. And not much has been made of it. I made the point last summer that it happened once, and this was, coming off the heels of Hamlin. Okay, Hamlin, I get it. That was, a very scary situation. I get it. It made for some uncomfortable rules decisions, and since he ended up getting screwed, then it happened once in the preseason, twice in the preseason. All right, this is getting too much where, hey, somebody gets hurt and the game's over. It's football. People are going to get hurt. So I'm totally with you. Speaking of gaming companies, in the recent week or so, the last week or so, this surcharge that a certain book, DraftKings, is going to implement in certain states. Is that going to, or let me just leave it open-ended. What is that going to do? What is your take on this?
I strongly feel that any company that tries to put the surcharge in place, it's going to be an unmitigated disaster. Remember the new Coke, Will, that was going to be better than the old Coke?
Sure.
And it wasn't. And then they went back to the old Coke at great expense to the company. For the last 50 years, the universal number that you're being charged in Vigorous is 10, okay? Minus 110. So it's, if you're betting to win 100, $10 is what the cost has been the last 50 years. And now all of a sudden, someone wants to put what they call a nominal surcharge of a little over 3% on that amount. Okay, well, wait a minute. That's not so bad. So instead of charging me $10, you charge me $10.30, right? Oh, but no, wait a minute. The surcharge is going to be on my base bet as well. So it's not 3.2%. You're going to charge me, it works out to be, you're laying minus 113.6 instead of minus 110. Now, 110 and 113.6 don't look that much different, but what the numbers you need to compare is now you're laying $13.60 instead of 10. So the last 50 years, every book in the world has charged you $10, and now books are going to try to charge you $13.60. Absolutely not. Will not fly. It's exactly the same product. This is not a situation where you have Starbucks and dummies go and eat at Starbucks. Starbucks food is worse, way worse than McDonald's. I don't understand anyone that would ever order any food from, it's like 4-day-old bakery food or like weeks old, breakfast sandwiches that are microwaved, and yet people will pay it. So maybe someone will lay minus 113.6 because they do it at Starbucks, but at least you can say that they like the Starbucks coffee. It's better than the Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I don't think it is, but in this case, you know what? You're betting the Raiders against Minnesota. It's the same point spread. Who is going to pay $13.60 when you can pay $10 to bet the identical bet across every single other venue? You only need one other out anywhere. No one is going to pay that. And the thought that other providers are going to follow suit and add the surcharge is ludicrous to me. It's just not going to happen.
People will probably be headed to Vegas, either start a football season. A lot of people, make it in September, the football season starting, NFL, nicer weather, or this week for Bet Bash. So a lot of people that are headed to Vegas, what advice would you give them in terms of maximizing bonus? What's a good deal right now in Vegas?
I would absolutely, as a lower level bettor, the number one way to win is to look to implement as many bonuses as possible. So like all these books are given fantastic sign up bonuses, and you see like $5 gets you a $150 free bet. I would 100% look to really take advantage of that. By the way, when you do get a free bet, let's say you get a $100 free bet, It's only worth 50 cents on the dollar if you bet it on Minnesota, for instance, plus 4.5 against the Raiders. The way to bet it, you want to play a 3-team parlay that pays 6-1. That way, if you bet 8 3-team parlays, just randomly throwing darts, you'll hit one of them and it'll pay 6-1. So if you have 8 $100 free bets, you'll get back $600 by betting eight 3-teamers, even if you're just flipping coins against the spread. So it's worth 75 cents on the dollar. You want to bet a big underdog, be it a plus 500 in a boxing match or a 3-1 parlay paying 6-1. That's the way to maximize these bonuses once you get them.
Fez, I appreciate the time. Let me ask you, are you excited for the season? Do you get excited? Is it just, do you look at it as work? I know you've had some rest time. So what is your thought process here as we are starting to get into it with preseason in full swing this week, NFL, regular, week 1, not that far away. Or are you excited right now?
That's a great question. So I'm always excited whenever the season starts, but it represents a situation where I go from having lots of free time, family time, to getting up at 6 a.m. and just going at it so difficult. And I love it, but now I'm working 12 hours a day instead of 6 hours a day. So it balancing work and life is very difficult during football season. So I know that that's a challenge. And you know what? In September, it's super fun. And then by the end of October, I'm already like, wow, is this a grind? It's not unlike a poker player that all of a sudden has great games to play in. And he's like up, but he has to play till like 4 a.m. And it's like, hey, I'm making a lot of money, but this is really hard on the body. And I'm no young spring chicken on the wrong side of 60. So finding that balance, it becomes difficult. Little things like maybe stop watching the London games at 5:30 in the morning, stuff like that, which I used to do when I was younger.
All right, Fez, I appreciate the time. Anything I missed? Anything I should have asked? Anything you want to get off your mind, or do we cover it?
I would just emphasize, if you can find one thing that you're aware of that no one else is aware of, one prop bet, then you are going to have a leg up on all your competition. I'll use an example like the new kickoff rules. It's going to have some interesting dynamics. You're going to see higher scoring because teams are going, like I said, you're going to start on the 29 on average instead of the 25. That's going to help scoring with better field position, probably by about 1 point per game. It's also going to help big underdogs. Why? Because big underdogs don't score as often as big favorites. So the big favorites are going to kick off 2 to 3 times more, right? A 16-point favorite in a football game. And so it's the underdog who's going to get the better field position after these kickoffs that they're going to be receiving. Field goals, short field goals are going to become less and less common. This is obvious. It won't be obvious to Tomlin and Pittsburgh, but it'll be obvious to the analytics teams. If you have 4th and goal on the 3, what good is a field goal going to do you? You've got the ball on the 3-yard line. If you go for it and miss, you stick the other team on the 3. If you kick a field goal, they get the ball on the 29. They're going to get 26 yards from your field goal. So your field goal is not worth 3 points. It's worth like 1.3 points because you give up all that field position. It's a no-brainer. You go for it in that situation because it's no big deal if you miss it. And obviously, if you get it, you get 7 points instead of 3. So you're going to see a lot more deep in the red zone. Kicking field goals 4th and short are going to become a thing of the past.
Fez, this was awesome. I appreciate your time. The info was outstanding as usual. Thanks for coming on. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Very good. I only sell at pregame.com. At Fezzik Sports is my Twitter. And if you really like a play and get a rogue number, well, you should bet more. Bet more.
Fez, appreciate it, man. Hopefully we'll catch up down the road. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, that'll do it. Thank you to Steve Fezzik. We will be back Friday. Rate, review, subscribe. See you then.